that that nothing you propose is impossible for you. I know that. Mizem ma'alim etza belidat lachen igadati v'lo avin niflo mimeni v'lo eda. Right? Who is the one who who hides the counsel, who hides the advice, who hides wisdom without knowledge? I spoke without understanding. I spoke of things that are beyond me, which I did not know. Shmana va'anochi adaber eshalcha v'hodieni. So hear now, and I will speak. I will ask, and just give me answers to the questions that I would like an answer to. So here, Iyov submits to God, and Iyov, it's a full capitulation, right? He answers. He says to God, "I'm willing to listen." And you know, again, it's a little bit for me sort of disappointing. Let's just see the last couple of verses that Iyov says here. In verse 5, L'shema ozen shamaticha v'ata eni ra'atcha. I've heard you with my ears, but now I see you with my eyes. Al kain emas v'nichamti al afar va'efer. Therefore, I recant and relent, being but dust and ashes. And to me, I have to say that last phrase bothers me. And yes, there's an idea in our tradition in Jewish life of saying, "Anochi afar va'efer," I am nothing, I am bright. But there's I don't know which Chassidish Rebbe it was, maybe Shmuel can tell us, who in one of his pocket he had Anochi afar va'efer, and his other pocket he had Bishvili nivra olam. Right, so yes, you should be humble. I'm nothing but dust and ashes, but you can't think that you're nothing. You also have to have the thoughts that you are. God created the world for you to have confidence and strength and ambition. And Iyov here, and maybe it's because it's just with God, Iyov here says, "I'm afar ve'efer. I'm nothing. I'm willing to listen to whatever you say. I spoke disrespectfully." Iyov is willing to just sort of admit defeat. He's been vanquished, and it's very hard from a theological perspective for me. I said it's wonderful. The book raises the questions and asks the questions and discusses the struggle and the difficulty. I would love here if Iyov would have argued further and said to God, "Fine, I don't understand fully what you do, and I can't even comprehend even one millionth of it, but give me some sort of answer as to why I have suffered so greatly when I did nothing wrong." And that's not what Iyov does. Iyov just is willing to accept what God does here. I'm happy for people to comment about that if you have something else to say. Let's keep reading. Vayachar diber Adonai tadvarim ha'ele Iyov. Vayomer Adonai el Eliphaz Teimani, Chara api v'cha uv'shnei re'echa, ki lo dibartem elai nechona ka'avdi Iyov. An amazing verse here. So now God turns to the friends, and he specifically mentions Eliphaz. Doesn't mention Bildad or Tzofar. He certainly doesn't mention the Elihu who came in 10 chapters ago and just started talking without being invited. It's just to the three of them, three friends. And what does God say? I am angry at you and your two friends. My English here says, I am incensed, right? Why? Because you have not spoken the truth about me as did my servant Iyov, which is one of the key ideas in the book. Iyov admits, it's not because Iyov admits that he didn't know that God now says that he spoke the truth. Iyov spoke the truth. Iyov said, I am not guilty of these charges. I did not sin. I got punished. I don't understand the world. I don't know why God did it to me. There's some larger scheme, larger thing going on here, well beyond my pay grade. But Iyov speaks the truth. It's not just I sinned and therefore I was punished. It's well beyond that. And that's the reality. But his friends what do they conveniently try to do? They just try to they try to take Iyov's situation and just say it's just like every other situation where Iyov is done, where somebody sinned, that's the same thing. And they spoke, they lied. They attempted, as we said sort of many times, they attempted to take Iyov's situation and fit it into their theological frameworks and their boxes, and it didn't fit in there. And so God is upset because they attempted to say, we're speaking in the name of God. This is for sure the way it is. And they were lying. They were just speculating. Therefore, God tells the friends in verse 8, take Shiva parim v'shiva elim luchul avdi Iyov alitem ola ba'adchem v'Iyov avdi yipalel aleichem kim panav esalavilti asoti machem nevala ki lo dibarti elai nechona kavdi Iyov. What does he say? Take 7 bulls and 7 rams and go to my servant Iyov and bring a sacrifice for yourselves. And then Iyov will daven for you. And then I'll listen to you, because you have not spoken truthfully like my friend Iyov. And they listened. So what do? They come and they do what God says. They offer these sacrifices. They offer their apologies. Iyov prays for them. And then what happens as a result is that God then shows favor to Iyov. It's an idea here. If you pray for somebody else, then the prayer should be answered for you. We derive that first in the Torah from Avraham. Avraham wants a child. He prays for Elimelech, and after Elimelech had kidnapped Sarah, and the people in his house are become healthy, and then Sarah becomes pregnant. So we see that perhaps here the same idea with Iyov. Pray for others, and maybe it will boomerang back to you at this time. But what shows here, right? The friends came, and what did they say? You did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. When Iyov's friends come to him and say, we wronged you, what does he do? He doesn't say to them, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. Now, he did that a lot already. What does he do? He prays for them. He prays for their favor. And it shows, again, the greatness of Iyov. And now it's time to put a bow on it. Verse 10. V'Adonai shav et shvut Iyov b'hitpalalo ba'ad re'ehu v'yosef Adonai et kol asher li'Iyov l'mishneh. So now God restores Iyov's fortune when he prayed on behalf of his friends, and God gave Iyov twice what he had before. That works with money. I don't know if it works with deceased people, so it's a difficult story to understand. Vayavo elav kol echav v'chol achiotav v'chol yodav lifnim vayochlu imo lechem b'veito vayanudu lo vayenachamu oto al kol hara asher avira Adonai alav vayitnu lo ish kisita echat. The ish nezem zahav echad. Now all his brothers and sisters and all his former friends came to him. They had a meal with him, and they consoled him, and they comforted him for all the misfortune, right? They're not telling him what he did wrong, that God had brought it from him, and each one gave him a kasita, and each one gave him a gold ring. Adonai berachet achariti Iyov me'rishito, and God bless Iyov's the second half of his life. We'll call it greater than the early part of his life. Vayhilo arba'asar elef tzon v'sheshet alafim gmalim ve'elef tzebed bakar ve'elef atonot, and he had also 14,000 sheep and 6,000 camels and 1,000 yoke of oxen and 1,000 she donkeys. And I don't know if that's double of what he had before. Vayhilo shiva banim v'shlosha banot. He also had 7 sons and 3 daughters, which is the same that he had at the beginning. And right, he called them Yemima and Kitsia and Keren Hafuch. And nowhere in the land were women as beautiful as the daughters of Iyov. Look at this, and Iyov even gave them estates along with their brothers. He didn't just give it to the men, he also gave it to his beautiful daughters. Iyov lives for 140 more years, and he's able to see sons and grandsons and granddaughters. Iyov zakein usva yamim. And when Iyov died old and content, and one of the things early on in the book, many chapters ago, that we pointed out, was one of his friends was saying to Iyov, if you repent, you'll die nicely, a beautiful death, surrounded by your family, surrounded by your loved ones, but it's only if you repent that these things will happen, which couldn't happen that time because all of Iyov's family, everybody was dead. But here we see that even that comes true in the end. It's a difficult chapter, difficult book. It's easy when you come out on the other side to say, it was all worth it. If X and Y and Z didn't happen to me, then I wouldn't be here today. But it's a little bit harder. It's if Iyov would have lost all his wealth and maybe his health, but his family was still alive, would be one thing. But the fact that he loses the family members, people lose their lives and comes out on the other side, and they're just replaced is a very sort of strange answer. It's very utilitarian, but it's not very. It's not just, and you hear these these stories. I have this old friend of mine who then his parents were congregants in the Fifth Avenue Synagogue, and I remember his mom told us one Friday night how on his deathbed, this woman, so she probably, if she's 75 or 80 today, she said on her deathbed, her dad told her and her sisters about how he had a family before the Shoah, and they were killed, his wife and his children. I don't remember if it was sons or daughters. And he was telling them, I think, because he wanted them. And he never told them. She didn't know her entire life. She didn't know for 40 years, for 50 years, for 60 years. I don't know how at what point, how long she didn't know about it. And presumably he wanted them to be some sort of memory. And, I think of that story versus this book. And I'm sure he loved his family that he had and his wife and his daughters and that he had after the Shoah, but it wasn't just like everything was fine. And so it's a very difficult book. It's a very, very harsh book. It's very difficult to understand. And Iyov gives in, and, from a sort of a Disney perspective, he lives happily ever after. But life is not that simple. We'll stop it at that. Life is not that simple, and I'll do a re-recording because at some point Big Brother decided that it was going to record. So we'll